Welcome to Confluencist 101.
Basically, we're on a path to bankruptcy. America's on a path to bankruptcy. So,
When did this video come out? A month ago. This is an old video. I think it's a good one to watch, to be honest.
we have to cut government spending, or we're just going to go bankrupt, just like a person would.
As we all know, recently Donald Trump won the US election, and one person that took center stage in it all was Elon Musk. Musk was actually one of the Trump campaign's largest individual donors, pledging over
Yeah, like, we need campaigner for him, man. Like, sure, Trump can pick Elon Musk to do this job, but it's like, man, just being able to give $100 million to a man to run his campaign is just absolutely crazy. Like, that, it's just nuts, man. It's like, yeah, that's his $100 million, but bro, the fact that you're able to buy, he borderline bought his seat in the cabinet, bro. Like, it's just nuts. And that's it, man, it's just crazy, man. Like, that's the same thing with like corporations giving money, bro. Like, Kamala Harris got a lot of not tax money, donor money from these corporations, and she has to listen because next election comes around, the DNC is not going to be getting that same funding. And if Trump doesn't listen to Elon Musk, the Republican Party isn't going to be getting large donations like that, you know? So, yeah, man.
$100 million to support the campaign. But interestingly, his involvement with Trump isn't stopping at just campaign support, as Elon is now expected to take an active role within the Trump administration. Yeah. You might have seen this meme floating around in the last few weeks featuring Donald Trump, UFC founder Dana White, and Elon Musk, with the caption reading, "We're looking at the new CEO, CMO, and CTO of America." And in the case of Elon Musk, it appears to be true that he will take on a sizable role in the government as head of government efficiency.
At the suggestion of Elon Musk, I will create a Government Efficiency Commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. And
I mean, it's really not a bad idea, but you have to also have a plan on where is this money going to go. Once it's cut down, is it going to be used to pay, like it says here, plan to fix the national debt? But, you know, this money could also be used for social programs, you know, infrastructure, education. You know, the U.S. national debt is huge. I don't blame them for picking that as their target for this cut on government spending. It's really not a bad idea, but you know, we spend all this money on the U.S. government, and we don't see a lot of social programs to back up the amount of money we're taxed. You know, we have to have a reason for our tax money, and right now, we're seeing a big problem with government bloat, and you know that's what he's trying to fix. But if there's no bloat or little to no bloat, we're able to have more money to pay back our national debt. We have money to have for social programs and things like that, you know.
Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force.
So what is Elon Musk's role going to be? Is it going to be a good thing, or is it just going to be one big conflict of interest? Elon Musk, as was recently confirmed, is set to become the head of what he calls the Department of Government Efficiency, or, you guessed it, DOGE for short.
I think the funniest name is DOGE, the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
And from what he's said so far, it seems his primary goal is to simply cut out all the waste and inefficiency that's currently seen in the government. And from my research, this all boils down to two key objectives. One, reducing the government deficit, and two, deregulation. Now, I'll talk about both, but I want to start with the idea of reducing the deficit. So much like a person, the government has income and it has expenses. And if it wants to spend more than it earns, it has to take on debt to afford it. Similar to us, if we want to buy a new car, but we can't afford it, then we have to take out a loan to buy the car. Now, the problem with the US is that every year since 2000, the government has spent more than it earns each year. As you can see, for fiscal year 2024, the government collected 4.92 trillion in revenue and had 6.75 trillion.
Bro, that's nearly $2 trillion in debt, man, to other countries. That's terrible. Imagine we had that every single year, we'd probably go bankrupt by like 2030, 2040. 2040 the latest. Like, it's insane, bro. It's absolutely insane.
Trillion in expenses. In the income column, we have 49% from individual income taxes, 35% from social security taxes, 11% from corporate taxes, and then smaller amounts from customs duties, excise taxes, estate and gift taxes, and other. And then over in the spending column, we can see that 22% goes to
Social Security. It's a good thing. But if there's not like some sort of reform where it's on the brink of collapse right now, man, and it's important for people in retirement. These people paid into it throughout their life, and if it crashes, like as they're during their retirement, man, like they won't have that fixed income that they need.
To social security, 14% to health, 13% on interest, 30% on Medicare, 13% on defense, 10% on income security, and then lesser amounts for veterans benefits, education, transport, regional development, and all the.
Yeah, this is Medicare, man. It's like, we don't spend a lot, man. It's like we most of our money, man, is going towards this private healthcare. It's kind of crazy. All right, most of our money, come on. Most of our money is going towards Social Security. We spend a lot on health, Medicare, man. But national defense, bro, what was that, like 13%, bro? We just spent a lot of money, bro. Net interest. This is the biggest problem right here, is the interest. On this debt right here, this big box, this is what we're paying extra every year,
The other stuff. But now this is the important part. Because the United States government consistently spends more than it earns each and every year, that leaves a shortfall, and that shortfall has to be made up by the government selling bonds. It's essentially like an IOU. Investors give money to the US government and the US pays them back after a certain period of time. But the problem with this is these bonds require the government to pay interest. And as the debt pile grows and grows, so does the interest section on the expenses side.
Right. This is what I was just talking about.
Of the equation. And that only makes the deficit worse. And on top of that, there's the compounding factor at the moment of higher interest rates. So because the government runs a deficit, when their debts come due, they actually can't pay them back. So what they do instead is they will take on new debt to help pay down the old one. But the problem with this,
yeah, he's about to explain it. I was just about to say, this is like the worst thing you could possibly do.
Is if you took on $1 million of debt at 1% interest, and now you have to refinance at, say, 5% interest, that also starts to snowball the interest expense of the country. Yep. For the same outstanding debt, your interest expense is now higher thanks to the higher interest rates. And all of this is what Elon Musk has drawn attention to recently. This was him on Joe Rogan a few weeks back.
This whole idea of this government efficiency agency.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is pretty simple, is that like we've got this suffocating massive federal bureaucracy. Government spending is like bankrupting the country.
See, the thing with government spending, right? I've talked about this, not necessarily government spending, but ways to make extra revenue for the government. And the community wealth fund, right? People invest into it. It grows business through giving out loans. It puts people into these building groups that would help reduce crime, get people into affordable housing. When you're able to tax those profits, just in my city alone, within 5 years, it could generate $32 million for my city, which is of 40,000 workers or something like that. There's 40,000 workers in my city. It would get 320 million into the funds that could be invested into local business, into getting people into these building groups, and it would be making money for the investors as well. I believe on a federal level, within like fucking 10 years or something, or no, 20 years, you could be seeing like an extra like 14 trillion, bro. Something nuts. I could put the numbers up on the screen on how that would work. It's basically like average bank account someone has, divide that by 2. Say they were to put half their money into this community wealth fund, which would be just as safe as a bank account, because at the end of the day, banks invest your money, they make money off your money, and they give you a small interest. You can think of this as getting a higher interest on your bank account, it compounding because they're investing more and more of your money over time. And because you're making more money, they will tax the profits once you pull your profits out. And just purely off the profits, bro, insane amount of money, man. It's insane. And this could literally pay back our debt within like 10 years if this was run at a federal level. But even if you had this at state levels, having these community wealth funds, and there's different ways you could run it. You know, you could have it at a state level, and half the tax revenue went to the federal government, or even 2.5% of the tax revenue went to the federal government, and 7.5% went to state government, so they could actually really hone in on what needs to be done in their state type deal. It could literally revolutionize education. You could give out free goddamn healthcare. You could give out free public transportation. Have state of the art public transportation. Have the best infrastructure in the country, in the world. This community wealth fund could literally transform the country. And on top of that, with those benefits, you're going to see growth in business. You're going to see more jobs, more people being able to come to this country because there's more jobs. You know what I'm saying? It's like it grows the country purely off of this community wealth fund. And you know, it's another great way to pay back and service this debt, and it would more than service this debt purely off the tax revenue. You're like, the community wealth fund is limited to investing into business, investing into building groups, you know, investing into to projects that would have a return on investment for, you know, investors. And yeah, man, it's a great alternative. Not even an alternative. It would be great in conjunction with reducing government spending, and it would give us money to give out all of these insane benefits, you know, based on the tax revenue, you know. And when we're getting this tax revenue, the people are still making money, you know. So
our interest payments on the national debt now exceed the Defense Department budget. The Defense Department budget is like $1 trillion a year. 23% of all government income taxes, tariffs, and everything is just going to pay interest right now. And that number is continually rising. So if we don't do something, the entire government budget will be paying interest.
Yep.
There won't be money for anything. No, there won't be money for Social Security. There won't be money for Medicare, nothing.
And, you know, if we had a community wealth fund, we wouldn't have this problem. That's like literally one of the biggest things that, you know, Confluencism advocates for, is having some sort of community wealth fund at any level would literally change government and how it could be run.
That's where we're headed. It's like, hello, wake up. Wake up. So we have to cut government spending, or we're just going to go bankrupt, just like a person would if that overspends.
Elon sees the deficit worsening over time. He sees the refinancing of government debt at higher interest rates ballooning the interest expense of the country, and he wants to change that. But the first step in stopping the snowballing pile of debt is to put the US in a position where, after all is said and done in a given year, it doesn't need to take on more debt. And that means America needs to either increase its income or reduce its expenses.
Increase its income. Community Wealth Fund. There you go.
To eliminate the deficit and return to a budget surplus. And
another thing as well with this community wealth fund, we could have a government surplus and be giving out loans to other countries. If we're not spending all this money, what do we do with it? We need to spend it, or we need to loan it out to other countries, and they could benefit from these loans. And at the end of the day, the federal government would be benefiting from this, making us more money and giving us more of a state-of-the-art, education, healthcare. Like with this community wealth fund, we could quite literally have free healthcare. Like I just talked about this, we could have free healthcare, free public transportation across the country, be investing into high-speed rail, having state-of-the-art supply chains. It could literally change everything, bro. Everything.
Elon's planned role as the head of government efficiency, he wants to go through and tackle this issue by eliminating a lot of wasteful spending.
There are expenditures that don't make a lot of sense.
I just want to say, bro, this hat. Oh my goodness. Hey, I know you're a rich man, but you got a gold MAGA hat on, man. Listen, you guys might like Trump, you guys might not like Trump, but wow, man, this is an interesting hat. I like the black one though. I'm not even a Trump guy. I just stick to the black, man. It's pretty nice.
That are wasteful, and we need to put a stop to that. Honestly, there's so much government waste that's going on that I would call it a target-rich environment. Like, it's hard, like, in every direction. There's this just mad waste, and I think
it's just mad waste, bro. He's just talking mad young. Isn't he like 40? How old is Elon Musk? Yeah, Elon Musk is 53, bro. What are you talking like a Zoomer for? Come on, man, leave that to us.
simply, if people simply know that, well, if they waste a ton of taxpayer money, they're going to get fired, that will immediately improve the situation. Immediately.
And this is exactly what he's got experience in from running SpaceX, Tesla, and more recently, X. At Tesla, he focused heavily on streamlining operations, reducing costs across the supply chain, and enhancing the profitability of the company while improving affordability for their customers. SpaceX is a testament to his commitment to optimization, where each
and this is the same thing that would happen with worker-owned businesses, right? Because at the end of the day, worker-owned businesses, private ownership, they both have that profit motive. And the more streamlined a process is, the more money that would be going into, at least in a worker-owned business, there would be more money going into the workers' pockets, which would then in turn, have more money to invest into this community wealth fund. And, streamlining processes with supply chains, with manufacturing is the most important thing you can do when running a business. Even if you're running a socialistic society, right? You need streamlined processes to make products at quickest possible, to get it out. Streamlining processes is just very, very important, no matter what ideological stance you take.
Advancement is aimed at either reducing rocket weight or maximizing cost effectiveness. I mean, the whole reason that rocket got caught by the chopsticks in the first place is because they deleted the landing legs to save weight.
This is actually pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. Like catching a rocket midair. I believe they did this first try as well. It's nuts, bro. This was sick. I'd seen this. I'd seen this before. Actually sick, bro.
That's an optimization. And then of course, we know most dramatically at Twitter, remember that Musk was able to implement substantial cost-cutting measures, notably reducing the workforce by 80%, while maintaining the platform's core functionality. Now, some of those
Bro, isn't it like 70% of Twitter's like bots, bro?
initiatives obviously weren't popular, but they were effective. And that's what he's all about, creating lean and effective operations. And it's that skill set that he now wants to bring to the US government.
The Department of Government Efficiency, what that's going to do is really just take a look at all the federal expenditures and say if something is not, if you're not getting great value for money for your hard-earned tax dollars, cancel it. I would like to say
It's true. But the conflict of interest there is prevalent, and we do have to keep our eyes on that. He could say, "Oh, the NHTSA is bad," and then he's running Tesla. They're able to not. They don't have to follow those. They don't have to follow those protocols anymore, and save money. So it's like, I don't necessarily think he's gonna do that. But just him having the ability to do that is something you have to keep your eye out for 100%.
hard job, but actually it's not because there's so much waste. So I actually think this is a fairly easy job. Although it will get a lot of opposition naturally from the entrenched interests that get the money and do nothing good with it.
True.
They'll be grumpy about it. But the American people will be very happy that their tax dollars are being spent in a much more sensible way.
And it obviously remains to be
That's similar to worker-owned businesses, right? More money in the workers' pockets instead of the business owners' pockets, right? Business owners might not be happy, but you got those worker co-ops, man. The average person would be happy. That's like the King's loyalists. You know what I'm saying? There are people who like private ownership, one man at the top. But man, I'm not about that. I like that bottom up business structure, right? Workers elect who they want to be, representing them. And that's the best way to run these things. And if Elon Musk were to transition into a worker-owned business and he was elected to his position, then it's fair. You know what I'm saying? Which I think he would be elected into his position in his businesses. But he wouldn't be owning these businesses. It would be worker-owned. That's what people are scared of, right? Is losing that power. But that power shouldn't necessarily be held by you as a business owner, because you are skimming off the top of workers' worth and putting it in your pocket, so yeah.
be seen exactly what Elon will take a swing at, but one thing he has discussed quite extensively over the past few weeks and months is government agencies. And this now leads us to the second part of the role that Elon wants to take, which is improving the efficiency of the government by consolidating or removing government agencies. And this has two intended outcomes: to reduce the running costs of the government and also to start to deregulate or untangle the overlapping web of bureaucracy that naturally...
Overlapping bureaucracy is a problem. I think Elon Musk has to go through like 5 different government agencies to even have a Tesla launch, which is kind of crazy. But that right there is also a conflict of interest. Granted, it isn't a good system that he has to go through 5 government agencies. If he were able to go through like 2 or 3, or it's better than 5, that's just government waste right there. You can consolidate them, save some money. We just have to, like I said, we have to just keep an eye out on the government waste,
as a function of the
or not the government waste, the conflict of interest he has potentially.
System stifles America's advancement.
We're spending money on all these government agencies, and I actually asked the AI how many government agencies are there, and the government isn't even sure how many government agencies there are. So it's somewhere around 450, depending on what you call an agency, at the federal level. So that's almost twice as many agencies as years that America has existed. So we're creating agencies at roughly 2 agencies a year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
Yes, this is crazy. So we've got this vast, suffocating federal bureaucracy that just gets bigger every year. And eventually you get to the point where everything is illegal. You can't get anything done.
And this is where Musk's perspective on government reform becomes a bit more complex and to a lot of people much more political. I think most people can appreciate the idea of trying to right the ship when we're talking about the deficit, but when we start to talk about deregulation, this is where people tend to draw their own lines in the sand, some for deregulation and others against. Now, I want to say that I am not at all trying to get political or enforce an opinion onto you guys. As I said on Instagram recently, I'm just a 29-year-old Australian dude, and I don't think most Americans would appreciate me chiming in and telling them how they should or shouldn't run their country. But I do still want to show Elon Musk's point of view because of course it gives us context as to the topic of this video, which is what will Elon Musk's role in the government likely entail. And in Elon's view, he has been very critical of over-regulation in the United States, frequently using the football field analogy. This is the idea that the game works best when there's 1 or 2 or maybe 3 referees on the field, depending on which football you're talking about. And that makes for an exciting game where the players can play, but the rules are still enforced. But what you don't want is for there to be 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 referees on the field, because as you put more and more referees on the field, there's less and less space and freedom for the player.
It's really not a bad analogy. And you also got to pay all these refs too, you know what I mean? And, more money you spend on the government, it's less you can go pay to social programs. So I do get the analogy. I don't know if that's where the analogy was going, but, that I obviously understand the analogy. More refs on the field, less movement for the players to go. But you got to think of this also like the political side, like how they were, you know what I'm saying.
Players to play, the game obviously breaks down. And this is the analogy that Elon commonly uses for the state of American overregulation.
For SpaceX, Starship was sitting on the pad, the rocket, this giant rocket. We could build the rocket faster than they could process the paperwork to approve the launch.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there for 2 months. If you're dealing with one agency, that's one thing. But if you've got to deal with 5 agencies,
Yeah, this is what I was talking about.
and the agencies will have to meet with each other. Now you've got like 25 different meeting configurations that have to take place. You get just hardening of the arteries. You just can't make progress. Like this is why we can't build high-speed rail in America. It's basically illegal.
Musk's call for deregulation, however, obviously isn't without controversy. At the end of the day, regulations are often established for safety, environmental protection, and consumer rights. So the idea of scaling them back raises legitimate concerns. Critics worry that loosening regulations might lead to reduced safety standards or fewer protections for the public. For example, consider the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
This is what I was talking about as well earlier.
Or NHTSA, which enforces vehicle safety standards like seatbelts, airbags, and crash tests. Now, while this is admittedly a reasonably extreme example, if these regulations were weakened or removed, it raises the question, would automakers continue to prioritize safety, or would they be tempted to cut corners to reduce costs? While there may be potential for streamlining and simplifying the regulatory landscape, it's reasonable to be cautious about the consequences. At the end of the day, deregulation can have both positive and negative effects. Here's Musk's response to these concerns.
We've got far too many government agencies. The federal bureaucracy has gotten out of hand, and we just need to pare it down to a sensible level. And if it turns out that like there's some regulation or agency that was doing something useful, we can put it right back. No.
You know what he was thinking of. He was thinking of the NHTSA, bro.
Problem. Like it's like, oh, that regulation was important? No problem, we'll put it right back.
On the surface, this approach seems practical, right? Testing out a leaner government and then restoring any crucial regulations if needed. But some might argue that it could be risky, right? If a regulatory body is removed only to realize later that it was actually essential, then there could be a period where people are impacted before it's reinstated. And in some cases, that temporary gap could have serious consequences for public safety, the environment, or other critical areas. So it's a fine line to walk in the regulation versus deregulation debate. Another concern raised is the potential for job losses. Consolidating or cutting back government agencies would inevitably lead to some layoffs, and
But with that, that's less money you got to spend on government workers, which at the end of the day is the most of the cost for government agencies is paying their workers. If you were able to consolidate the workers from this right here, if you're able to consolidate some of the workers from here into this government agency, yes, you're losing less jobs, but you're then also spending less money on those jobs, and then on top of that, you're spending less money on running this, and only having partial amount of running this into this type deal. So.
Consolidating or cutting back government agencies would inevitably lead to some layoffs, and that's a tough reality. Losing a job is hard for anyone, and it's understandable why people worry about this aspect. Now, Elon has addressed this concern directly, and in his view, he doesn't want to cause anyone undue economic hardship.
The point is not that people suffer economic hardship. The point is just that there are more productive things they can do in the economy. And it would be better if they did these other more productive things, and we didn't have this vast federal bureaucracy. So I was like, maybe like a couple of years of pay would be good, and then they could take a vacation, they could take another job and get double pay. I mean, it's not going to create an economic crisis. I think it's actually going to be really good. I think because people can move to where they're making products and services that are more useful to their fellow human beings.
So that's the argument around potential job losses, but beyond that, there is one really big issue that definitely does need to be addressed, and it's causing quite a bit of stir right now. And that is, if Elon is in charge of this deregulation in America, well, it's kind of a conflict of interest, right? Yeah. If Musk takes on this role in the Trump administration,
that's the hat I was talking about, bro.
And he would potentially have influence over regulations that directly affect his own companies like space.
Bro, all right. Off topic, bro. Look at this guy's jump, bro. He be hitting this jump like for no reason.
Potentially have influence over regulations.
What the hell?
That directly affect his own companies like SpaceX or Tesla. Elon has previously voiced frustration with regulatory bodies such as the FAA, which he feels has been slow to approve launches for SpaceX, and also with the NHTSA, which enforces safety standards.
They're necessary, Elon. Do not do it.
Affecting Tesla. Now, while a lot of people trust Musk's intentions, putting him in a position to alter regulations that impact industries where he has significant investments naturally raises concerns. This isn't necessarily a question of Musk's character, it's more about the risks inherent in allowing someone with vested interests to influence government policy in these areas. On the one hand, there is certainly massive scope for cost reduction in the US government that would definitely benefit America's financial position, but at the same time, there are concerns on the other side of the equation too.
I think we need to take a look at all federal expenditures and say, is this really benefiting the American people or is it not? And if it is, well, are we spending it wisely? Well, usually the answer is no. So then we should spend less money and spend it efficiently. But there's got to be a clear benefit to the American people or we shouldn't be spending money. And I think we also want to have extreme transparency. So like no shady backroom deals or whatever, everything done in the open, total exposure, like you can see the mistakes that are made, the good things that are done, you can comment on it, you can...
Which is really good. Confluencism is about transparency within the government as much as possible, right? It's necessary. And right now the US government has done so much shit, so much bullshit behind closed doors. And I actually can respect Elon Musk for saying this. I really
raise concerns. We want a transparent, open government, and because there will be mistakes that are made. With transparency comes trust. And then you can see, okay, we made a mistake, we'll fix that, we'll do that, and that's the best way to restore trust in government. Not that you should trust government, you shouldn't trust government, but it'll be you can trust it slightly more. If there's at least
Bro, he's so cheese, bro. He's actually cheesing me.
Transparency.
So hopefully this video gives you a reasonably balanced look at both the pros and the cons of Elon Musk's potential new role in the US government. Definitely let me know your thoughts as well down in the comments section below. Edit this far. Enjoy the...
Yeah, man, this was a good video. Very good video. It It was old. But yeah, man, I had a lot of good information. It was a month, it's only a month old. But you know, good money, good money, good money. What? I was thinking of this. But yeah, man, good content. Go subscribe to this guy, New Money. Good money, new money. Yeah, and that's it. See ya.